Have you ever had someone laugh at your problems, only to see their own world fall apart? Well, that's exactly what happened to me, and it all started with my cabin roof. Hi, I'm Your Name, and if you've ever dealt with a nosy, judgmental neighbor, this story is going to feel all too real. Make sure you stick around until the end. You won't believe how karma can be so fast and brutal. Also, hit that like button if you enjoy stories where justice is served. It all began last summer when I finally finished my little cabin in the woods. I had worked tirelessly, saving every penny, measuring every beam, and making sure the roof was perfect. But, of course, my happiness didn't last long. Enter Karen. You know the type? HOA board member, always snooping, always judging. She came over one afternoon, squinting at my cabin with that smirk that says, "I know better than you." "That roof isn't going to last the winter," she said, shaking her head like she was delivering the prophecy of doom. I tried to ignore her. Honestly, I did. I told myself, she's just jealous. But Karen couldn't resist turning every conversation into a criticism session. She would compare my cabin to hers, though her house was always conveniently ignored when it came to maintenance issues. One day, she hosted a little HOA meetup. Of course, she made sure everyone knew my cabin's roof was supposedly shoddy and dangerous. I tried to laugh it off, but the whispers and giggles stung. Every time I stepped outside, I could feel her judgment. Every time the wind blew, I imagined her smirking in the distance. And then came the storm. It started as a quiet drizzle, but by nightfall, the wind was howling like it had a personal vendetta. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of creaking timber. I ran outside to check my cabin, half expecting it to be damaged. But to my surprise, my roof was holding strong. My careful planning, careful construction, every late night I had spent nailing each beam, had paid off. Meanwhile, Karen's house was a nightmare. The very roof she had bragged about, the one she mocked mine for not being strong enough, began collapsing under the storm's fury. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was like watching a slow-motion disaster, and every piece of falling shingle felt like karma being served hot and fast. By morning, the entire neighborhood had heard the crash. People came running, and you should have seen their faces when they realized it was Karen's roof. Some were shaking their heads, others were trying not to laugh, and a few even came to check on me, worried that my cabin might be next. I just stood there quietly, sipping my coffee, thinking about how life has this funny way of teaching lessons. Now, here's where it gets even juicier. The HOA meeting that followed, Karen had no words, no lectures, no critiques, nothing. All those times she pointed fingers. Now she couldn't even point at herself without embarrassment. And me? I finally had a quiet moment of satisfaction, not just for the cabin, but for the validation that hard work and attention to detail actually matter. If you've ever been mocked or doubted, let this be proof. The universe has a way of balancing things out. And for those of you dealing with HOA Karens in your own life, remember patience, preparation, and staying calm can turn the tables in ways you never expect. Before we continue with how things unfolded after the storm, and trust me, you won't want to miss it, hit that subscribe button, because Section 2 of this story is going to reveal the aftermath, the confrontations, and how karma got served even further. And don't forget to like this video if you've ever had a nosy neighbor or someone who doubted you. It's time they got a taste of reality. So, if you thought the storm was the end of the story, think again, because the aftermath was even more intense. And yes, karma had a few more lessons for Karen. By morning, the neighborhood was buzzing. People were taking pictures, calling friends, and some even stopped by to offer help, but of course, not to Karen. She stood outside her collapsed roof, arms crossed, tried to look composed. But the panic in her eyes betrayed her, and that's when the whispers started. "Isn't it the woman who laughed at your name as cabin?" One neighbor asked. "Yes," another replied, shaking their head. Suddenly, all those times she had mocked me seemed to come back to her tenfold. And I have to admit, I felt a quiet sense of triumph. But it wasn't just about pride. I had to make sure no one was hurt. I ran over to check on her, calling out, "Are you okay?" She huffed, tried to act fine, but it was obvious she wasn't. The neighbors watched, some snickering, some shaking their heads in disbelief. Even though she had mocked me for months, I helped her assess the damage. And it was huge. Entire shingles torn off, beams broken, and inside flooded from the storm. Later that day, the HOA called an emergency meeting. Karen tried to regain control, pointing fingers, making excuses, blaming the storm, blaming contractors, even trying to subtly blame me. Can you imagine? She literally tried to turn the disaster into someone else's fault. But everyone had seen the damage. Everyone knew the truth. And for once, Karen had no power. I stood quietly, letting her struggle. It was fascinating to watch. Months of gossip, judgment, and mockery had all built up to this moment. And while I didn't cheer for her misfortune, I did feel the satisfaction of finally being heard, finally being taken seriously, and finally proving that preparation and care matter more than arrogance. Then came the real lesson. Karen, humble for the first time in years, had to face contractors, insurance, and the reality that her roof was not just flawed, it was dangerous. The irony was undeniable. The very roof she had mocked mine for now required weeks of repairs, thousands of dollars in constant supervision. Meanwhile, my cabin, still standing strong, proof that patience, effort, and attention to detail pay off. As the weeks went by, the neighborhood dynamic changed. People started to respect my cabin and my efforts. Karen, she learned the hard way that mocking others doesn't make you better. It only makes you a target for life's little lessons. And honestly, there's something beautiful about that. Karma isn't a fairy tale. It's real, it's fast, and sometimes it's hilarious. Now, if you're watching this and thinking about someone in your life who's constantly judging or mocking you, take a deep breath. Don't retaliate impulsively. Focus on your work, your goals, your life. Because when the storm comes, figuratively or literally, you'll be ready. And trust me, the satisfaction of seeing someone humble without lifting a finger is priceless. So here's my final advice. Build your life like I built my cabin. Carefully, with patience, with pride. And if someone laughs at you, let the universe handle the rest. It's faster than you think. If you enjoyed this story, smash that like button. Share it with anyone dealing with HOA drama, nosy neighbors, or just life's little Karens. And don't forget to subscribe, because I've got more real-life stories where patience, preparation, and a little karma turn the tables in the most satisfying ways possible. Remember, sometimes the quiet ones, the careful planners, the ones people mock, they're the ones who walk out of the storm unscathed and watch the world finally see the truth.